One of the things that you see early on when you start up What Remains of Edith Finch is the house, this looming, bizarrely shaped structure that is where you are going to spend most of your time in the game. After I played the game, I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to the house, something more than just something iconic that they could put on the cover. And I actually figured out a deeper meaning for the house and for its appearance. I'm Kate, and I like playing games and talking about games, and if you like those things, please stick around. And in particular, if you like talking about What Remains of Edith Finch, then please stick around in this video. I want to give you a warning that there will be spoilers. This video imagines that you have played the game. Quick disclaimer, this is just my interpretation. The creators of the game have not said anything on this matter, and until they do, it is 100% open to interpretation, and I'd love to hear your ideas. So please leave a comment of what you think after I present my thesis. I think the house represents trauma. I want to clarify that this house and this whole story is about people who have not adapted to their trauma well. They haven't had healthy mechanisms for dealing with it. And so if you or your loved ones have had trauma, this might not reflect your experience. In fact, I hope it doesn't. So the first thing to look at is Edie's original house. The original house that she was bringing with her family, they were bringing it over on a ship and sailing over, and it was going to be where the famous Finch house was placed. But instead, tragically, it crashed into the ocean. And so instead of that house being able to be a home, it is perpetually there, a presence looming over the house that we see. It's a constant reminder of that first trauma. There's no getting past it in any way because it is constantly in their view. And this all happened before they even built the foundation for the house. So this really is the foundation. And this is the foundation for the family, this trauma. To further elaborate on how it is founded on trauma is the fact that they built the cemetery first. The cemetery seems to be built as an attempt at a coping mechanism, a means to control and accept the tragedy at hand, but living next to the cemetery establishes a sense of dread in the house and becomes instead a constant reminder of the tragedy that they've experienced and will experience. It compounds on the trauma that they've already had and isn't a very effective coping mechanism. As these really awful things keep happening and the cemetery fills up, there's no change in the rooms. They're stuck at the time when these people are alive. These rooms themselves are not able to move on from that moment. But this means that the people that are living in the house literally have to live with these constant reminders of all that they have lost. For most families dealing with trauma, these things they have to navigate around are invisible. They're present but not seen. But for the Finch family, they get visible, physical manifestations of those things that they have to navigate around within their own home. And as the rooms grow greater in number, they have to work harder to navigate around these spaces, just like they would have to work harder to navigate through all this trauma. One interesting thing is Dawn, who is constantly trying to move on from it. Even as she lived in the house, originally her bedroom was shared with her brothers, and she couldn't live in that stuck room anymore, so she moved her bed away. And then once she got the opportunity, she moved away from the house. This was her escaping her trauma. This was her trying to break that trauma chain. And for a while, it works. She's able to get away, she's able to meet a man and get married and live a good life. But running away and avoiding the problem entirely is not always the most effective way to escape something. And consequently, once tragedy strikes, it all falls apart. She experiences loss again and loses her husband. As soon as this happens, all that trauma that was in her life, all that trauma that she was stuck with and lived with for so long, comes back. And in terms of the story, she moves back to the house. Because of its inability to be able to grow from these tragedies, to be able to move on from these tragedies, it starts to deform and grow appendages that make it look not like a traditional house or a traditional home, just like trauma can distort a home and family. Once this trauma is back in Dawn's life, once it's affecting every aspect again, it starts affecting her kids tragically. One thing Dawn tries to do to protect her children is seal off all the doors so they can't enter these rooms that are stuck in the past. But they are still something that they have to navigate around. They'll just have less capacity to understand why they're having to navigate around their own home in this way. However, Edie, who has experienced all of this trauma and likes to talk about it, consequently also drilled peepholes into the doors. These peepholes, I think, reflect Edie telling these stories and giving them glimpses into this trauma. Unfortunately, they are still living in that distorted home, but for the sake of her daughter, she's able to get away again. And I do think this step actually helps Edith start the process of healing for the family. Yes, we still see Edith returning to the house after her mom has tragically passed away, but with one key difference. She's simply visiting the house, experiencing it temporarily, but she doesn't have to live in it. At one point in the game, Edith reflects on how Edie was always fixated on the past and Dawn was always focused on the future.
My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away.
And she doesn't say this, but I believe that's why neither of them could fully heal from their trauma. But Edith brings balance. She's no longer stuck. She's able to reflect on the past and look forward to the future. And we see the same thing happening for her son. He doesn't have to live in the house. He visits it at times, clearly, but it's not filling every aspect and every space of his world. I'm hopeful that the Finch family can finally start healing from the decades of trauma that they have endured. That's what I think. I'd love to know what you think. Please let me know if there's additional evidence that points to this, or if you have a counter of what the house could possibly represent. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you like this, don't forget to subscribe and like. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!